This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi guys, in this tutorial we will learn how to create a realistic basket of Easter eggs scene. And then we'll also look at how to render that out into an image so that you can use it in a poster or a birthday card or some other card of some kind, which will be quite useful at this time of the year. You should be able to follow along this tutorial even if you are a beginner. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to download all the textures that we are going to use for our Easter egg scene. So in this case, I got some textures from cc0textures.com. So go ahead and search for Wicca004 and click this one over here. If your computer processing power is not as good, then 2K should work just as fine as well. Also go ahead and search for planks013 and go ahead and download that image set as well. I then went to pixabay.com and just searched up pattern, and I came up with just some random patterns, but you don't have to follow these ones. You can just pick any pattern that you like. So I went ahead and downloaded this one. So just go ahead and click free download and just select any one that you like. The higher the resolution, the better, and then just click download. Do the same for, let's say, about 4 or 5 Easter eggs. So in this case, I just did 4. So just copy the same links that you see over here. So for this one, and this one, and this one, and also this one. Okay, and once you're done with that, go over to textures.com and search for Decals Rusted 0064, and then just download the small one that you see over here, which should be free. Bear in mind that you do need to sign up to textures.com and also pixabay.com in order to download these images. Now that we have all the textures that we need for our scene, it's time to go into Blender. If you don't have Blender, just go to blender.org and click download Blender, whatever version that you have on your screen there. At the time of recording, the latest one was 2.82a. The download process should be generally straightforward. So once you've downloaded Blender and you've opened it up, we can now start to assemble our scene. So by default, we have a cube, lamp, and camera. I guess I'll reuse the camera, but I don't want to use the light or the cube that we have by default. So just click it and go to Object, Delete, and same with the lamp. Or you can also right click in the outliner view and just delete that way as well. So we only have the camera in our 3D space. Before I start the tutorial, I know many of you are working from home and perhaps feel a little anxiety and fear over the coronavirus pandemic that is affecting everyone globally. Keep faith in the fact that this pandemic will eventually end, and make sure to keep not only your physical, but also your mental health in check during the next few months while you stay at home. Spontaneous acts of creativity may help break up the routine of a day spent indoors and also help to settle your mind. Skillshare offers classes that may help express what you're feeling through creative self-discovery and will also help you to break the monotony of home life. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. A class that I found awesome was a class called Blender 3D, Your First Character by Remington. He breaks down how to create your own stylized character from scratch using Blender, and the lessons are easy to understand and bite-sized. He also covers rigging the character, which is great if you want to go away and animate it for a project. Skillshare's classes are curated for learning, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's all for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. However, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to use this link will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. You will need to hurry though, as this offer is only for the first 1,000 of my subscribers only. Back to the video. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start to model our Easter egg. Now, one of the best practices when it comes to 3D modeling is observing references. So whenever you want to model something that is fairly complex, it's a good idea to observe the reference, maybe even download a few image references onto your computer so you get an idea for the form and shape of the object that you're trying to model. In this case, it's an egg, so it's generally quite straightforward. So the way we need to model it is it's basically like a sphere, but it's a little bit like more pointy on the top. Not exactly really pointy, but getting closer to that pointy shape at the top. and it's also a little bit stretched on the vertical axis as well. So the modeling for this egg is going to be pretty much really simple. I'm going to go into add mesh UV sphere to start off with, and straight away I can see that there's way too many like vertices just by looking at the overall shape. If you look into wireframe, we can see that more clearly. So I need to reduce that because I don't really need that much to start off with. So let's go over to add UV sphere, and then I think I'm just going to change this to half, so about 16 by 8. And I think that is a good starting point. So let's go into solid view, and just to add more resolution, I'm going to use a non-destructive modifier just to make it look smoother. So go to add modifier, subdivision surface, and this is non-destructive and will help to get back that smooth shape. So if I just bump this up a lot, we can see that it looks really smooth. If I remove it, it goes back to the original shape. Now there is a reason why I'm doing this. Now you may be thinking, why can't I just go to add UV sphere and then just bump this up to a crazy amount, like 250 by, let's say 120, and this one looks really smooth? Well, there is a reason why I'm doing that, and I will explain it a little shortly. But for now, I want to keep the vertex count really low, and then just use a non-destructive modifier to add those vertices in for me afterwards. Okay, so let's first off start off by modeling the shape of our Easter egg. This is going to be very easy. We can't do it in the object mode. I mean, we can try to scale up on the Z, like this, and it kind of looks like an Easter egg, but we can't control that pointed shape unless we can somehow warp it, but really we can't. So we need to do this in edit mode. And to change to edit mode, you can go from object mode to edit mode. So now we can play around with the vertices, edges, and faces of this polygon. The shortcut key to doing that is by pressing tab on your keyboard. So we're now tabbed into edit mode. So to get that egg shape, all we need to do is click on this top vertex over here to select it. And if we move it up on the Z-axis, we see that it doesn't affect these other vertex as well. I want these other vertex to be influenced by this movement as well. And the way to do that is by using this tool here, which is called the proportional editing tool. And if I click and drag now, we can see that we have these other vertices being influenced, and it's being controlled by this circle that we see over here. So if I scroll out, we can get more vertices to be influenced. So in this case, I would like that. And I want to move it a little bit higher, like so, until it looks like an egg shape. And we're getting a bit of that pointy shape. If you want to control that pointy shape even more, you can hit Alt and click to select a loop like that. And then you can scale it down to get, and scroll in. Scale it down to get more of that pointy shape if you want. But I think I like the default. I actually want to make it a little bit fatter. So I might scale it up by clicking and dragging this white circle over here. Let's move to the move tool. Let's move this down on the Z-axis a little bit to get more of that egg shape. So now if I tab out of edit mode, our Easter egg shape is now done. Actually, I think I find that it's a little bit too low. Maybe I'm going to move it up a little. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so our Easter egg shape is now done. We can see a lot of these edges that are quite visible from this model, and we can fix that by changing the shading type of this one. So just go to Object, Shade Smooth, and it looks smooth. Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, wow, our egg model is done. It's as simple as that. Actually, it isn't. If you look at the top, we can see very faintly that this pinching effect. Like if I just bump these up, it becomes more and more apparent at the top and also at the bottom. Now, the reason for this pinching effect, if I tab into edit mode, you can see if I just select this face by going to face select mode, you can see that this face has 4 vertices. Whereas if I select this face, it has 3 vertices. In 3D modeling, a face that has 4 vertices is called a quad, and a face that has 3 vertices is called a tri. Now, tris are looked down upon in 3D modeling. It's generally advised by 3D modeling experts that we should avoid the usage of tris as much as possible, and we should always focus on using quads. Now, there are use cases where tris and even n-gons, which are faces that have more than 4 vertices, are useful, but in this type of model, it isn't really that useful. So especially these tris, they're creating these pinching effects over here. So we need to convert them into quads. Now it's not really quite easy to do that. We need to now change this one to use all quads rather than tris. And the way to do that is by selecting this vertex over here, and we'll just go ahead and delete that vertex by going to Mesh, Delete, Vertices. The same thing you can also do by hitting X on your keyboard and Vertices. So actually before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and place the 3D cursor over here. So Shift S, cursor to selected, so the 3D cursor there, and now go X, delete vertices. So the reason why I put the 3D cursor there is that we have a reference to where we want to add those vertices. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and fill up a bunch of quads over here. Now the quickest way to do this is by selecting an even number of vertices on the opposite sides of each other. What I mean by that is, let's go ahead and select this one by clicking Shift, then select this, 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 and this. Do the same on to this side as well. So I selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's also select 5 vertices over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, sorry, I think I did something wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Shift and then click those 5 vertices over here. And then, so you should have 5 vertices selected here, 5 vertices selected here, 3 vertices not selected here, and 3 vertices not selected here. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to go to Face and then go to Grid Fill. And now we have a bunch of quads filled up in those areas. Okay, the shortcut key is Control F G. Now I know these shortcut keys can be a little confusing, but generally for vertex it's Control V. That's the same thing as going over here. Edge, Control E. That's the same thing as going over here. And face, Control F, which is the same thing as going over here. So you can see the first letter of each of these ones, Control V, Control E, Control F, and for grid fill it's G. So in this case it's Control F, G. So now we can go ahead and select this vertex over here, and I'll now scroll down the influence so that it only affects the newly created vertices that we created. And let's move it up until we get that shape. Maybe able to increase the influence a bit more. Okay, so we have something that looks like that. And we'll also do the same thing over here at the bottom as well. I think it's looking a little bit too pointy at the top. I select that vertex, then go Control plus plus on my numpad, plus again, and then let's go to Vertex, Smooth Vertices, and that'll help to make it look a lot more smoother. Alt select this one, and then make this one a little bit fatter. Yeah, I think that's looking okay. Cool. So bottom, I guess I'll do the same thing with the bottom as well. Let's select these ones. Control V, and then smooth this one a bit. Yeah, so I think in terms of the modeling side of things, I'll go ahead and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So now I better quickly explain why I used less vertices when I did add mesh UV sphere. Okay, the answer is actually quite straightforward. So let's go back and go to the way it was before, 32 by 16. So if I go ahead and like add one like that, and then another UV sphere over here. Let's go 8 by 4. Okay. Purely the reason why I did this is because at the top, when I want to convert these quads to triangles, there's a lot less vertices that I have to select in order to do a quick grid fill and fill with quads. For this one, if I removed this top vertex over here, I'd have to like select even more vertices. Like, you know, it takes so long. And I have to count them, make sure it's too much work. In order to save a lot of time, I'd rather just start less and then just use a subdivision modifier to do the rest of the job for me. That's purely it. Okay, so now it's time to texture the egg. So the way we want to do this is we're going to go into edit mode again. I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt and then click the group of vertices that are right along the middle. Now make sure you don't click over like close to this one, otherwise it will select this loop over here. Go somewhere along the vertical and then you'll select right along the middle of here. So we want to cut like pretty much half of this egg, and then we want to go to Control E, or the same thing as Edge, and then go to Mark Seam. So this will be used for the seams for texturing. So if I go to UV editing now, select all the vertices by hitting A on my keyboard, or go to select all, and then I'll just go to U to unwrap all our vertices. So in this case we have two little islands like this, so I'm just going to go ahead and select all these ones by hitting L to select the linked ones, and then we'll turn off proportional editing in this one, and then we'll just move these islands so that they fit like this. So what this UV editing map does is, if you have an image texture, so we're about to overlay this image texture over here, so we want the vertices to be, you know, in line, fitting quite well. So I need to make sure that they line up nicely. So I might actually put this one on top of the other, and then we'll just scale it up to fit the entire image. Next thing we need to do is start to add in the texture to our Easter egg. The way we do this is going to the shading tab of our workspace. So once we're in the shading tab, go ahead and create a new material by going over here. Alternatively, you can go to the material tab over here and click use nodes, or hit a new material over here. We'll call this material something like egg 1. And the reason why I put egg 1 is because we're going to create 4 different materials later on for 4 different eggs, each having the different patterns that we downloaded. Next thing we need to do is we need to navigate to the folder where we have all our downloaded images. So I think in this case, let's start off with floral 1299. The first thing I need to do is I need to click and drag this image into our shader, like so, and then just connect this one to the base color. So straight away we have our Easter egg shape as so. Okay, so I just noticed something, the seams aren't matching up nicely. Exactly the halfway point is looking a little distorted. If you want, you can go ahead and fix that up, or you can just do some tricks in the render by not showing the seams, and you know, just make it like that. And maybe we'll go ahead and make it less rough so they get a bit more shiny, our Easter egg, and maybe a little bit more specular. This Easter egg looks way too smooth, so let's make it a little bit more realistic by adding a bit of bump. So the way we're going to do that is by adding a vector bump map and connecting the normal to this normal. There's no bump, but we need to add in a noise texture. So let's go to texture, noise texture, and connect the factor to the height. Okay, so right now the bump is looking quite horrid. It's looking more like a scrunched piece of paper. So we need to make the scale of the bump a lot smaller. So if I increase the scale over here, the bumps become a lot smaller. I might go something like 20, maybe increase the detail to like 3, distortion to 1, actually the distortion to 0.1 maybe. And the strength has to be a lot less, maybe 0.1, maybe even less than that, 0.05. Yeah, it's smooth, but not that smooth. So it helps to increase the realism of this one a little bit better. There is a noticeable seam over here. So if you want to fix that, you have to go to the UV editing and just nudge around these islands. Like if I go ahead and select this one by hitting L, you just have to nudge these ones around until it pretty much matches up. Okay, do keep in mind, if you want to add your own textures to this egg, like if you want to paint something on your own, you can always go to the texture paint mode that we have over here, hit plus, and maybe go base color. Let's start with 1024 by 1024. Choose the base color, maybe white or maybe slight yellow, whatever you like. And then just paint your own colors. So maybe you can paint some greens. You can paint some reds, I don't know. And maybe some blues. That, and then it's not perfect, but anyways, in the shading workspace, you can use this newly created color and use this one to be your base color instead, like so. So this is your own painted Easter egg. But texture painting is a whole different topic, and I probably don't want to get into it in an introductory topic. So let's just go ahead and use a pre-made image texture that you downloaded from the internet, or that you may have painted on your own using a program like Photoshop or GIMP. Okay, so we have our first Easter egg now done. So to create our other Easter eggs, let's just go ahead and duplicate this 4 times. So to duplicate, go Shift D, move on the X by hitting X, Shift D again, and then Shift D again and move it over here. Okay, and let's go ahead and change the textures for these ones. So to change the texture, just go ahead and select the next one, and in the material view, where it says 4 over here, this 4 means that it's saying 4 objects in the 3D view have the same material. So let's duplicate it by creating a brand new material and call this one egg 2. Same over here, so now 3 objects. So let's duplicate it and call it egg 3. And this one now 2 objects, egg 4. So we now have 4 different materials for our egg. So for egg 2, all we need to do is replace out the image with another one. So in this case, maybe this one. For this egg, let's replace this image out with another one, maybe this one. And for the final egg, let's replace out the image with this one. Cool, so our 4 Easter eggs are now done. So let's go ahead and save our work. Now comes the fun part. We'll now build up our scene to fit our Easter eggs. So first of all, let's create the basket for our Easter eggs. The basket will be quite simple. Shift A or add mesh circle. Okay, let's change the vertices over here to something a lot less, 16. And it's the same reason, because I'm going to go ahead and do a grid fill. So maybe this time we'll leave 5 vertices alone. Select these ones. Actually, let's just increase the range. Yeah, something like that. Same thing like we did before. Control F, G. Okay, the screencast keys aren't showing as they're supposed to. Interesting. Okay, let's go ahead now and save. Okay, so we've now filled that up. To create the actual basket, all I'm going to do is press E to extrude up, like so, and then maybe out a little bit like this, and that should be it. Let's delete the face on top, and we should have something like that. Let's go ahead and add it in a modifier, which will be a subdivision surface modifier. Let's go ahead and add a loop cut by hitting Control R and clicking and moving down. We're doing all of this in edit mode, by the way. And I think that's okay. Let's go ahead and increase the viewport count. Okay, let's also go ahead and add in a loop cut over here. Okay, maybe just turn the viewport down a little bit. Alright, and finally we'll go ahead and add in a solidify modifier. So this will just make our basket a little bit thicker. I'm not going to go overboard with it. I'm going to make it really, really subtle. Maybe 0.01 should be fine. Alright, that's cool. So let's go ahead now and apply both these modifiers so that now they are destructive. We have something like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to face select mode by clicking that one, and then hover my mouse over this right at the top of the ring over here, and Alt click to select that loop, Shift D, and then I'm going to go to E to extrude up, and maybe move it up like this much, and then select Control L to select all the linked ones, then hit Alt S and then make it go a little bit bigger and fatter, so that we have the handle for our basket. Okay, so the modeling for our basket is pretty much done. Really as simple as that. Adding the texture will be the next big challenge. So let's now go to Edge Select, Alt select this loop over here, Control E and mark seam. And now where we can't really see the view, maybe somewhere towards the back, let's go ahead and hit Alt, select this loop over here. And also the same thing, Shift, Alt select this loop over here. And we don't want to select any of these ones over here, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to C on my keyboard to go to circle select, and then use the middle mouse button to just remove those edges. Alright, once we have something like that, we'll also go Control E, mark seam. Oh, sorry, I don't need to see it from the inside as well. So Alt select this one, Control E, mark seam. Select these vertices by shift selecting, oops, these vertices and clearing out the seam. Control E, clear seam. So finally we need to go to UV editing and let's go to select all these vertices, U, unwrap, and we have something like that. Now that I've done that, let's go ahead and select all these vertices, R90, let's move it in this direction over here, and let's make it a lot bigger. Okay, let's go to the shading tab, and the texture that we're going to use for this one, let's create a new one and call this one basket. Let me just copy this folder and just paste it here. I'm going to drag and drop Wicker 4 and plug it into the base color just to see what that looks like. Okay, the default looks okay, actually looks nice, but the only change that I want to make to this one is the texture needs to be a lot smaller. So let's go back to UV editing and go to the image editor real quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and maybe scale by, let's say, 3. I think that's an ideal size. Now there's the seam thing going on, but remember in our 3D rendering we're not going to show that, we're just going to hide that so it's not so visible. Also, I don't know why these ones are not showing coming through. Let me this part hasn't unwrapped properly, so let me do this one again. U, unwrap, and let's move it R90, scale it. Maybe this one can be scaled, and scale this one up until it sort of matches the reference. Okay, and I don't want it to be so bendy like this one, so I'm going to just Alt select this one, go SY0, that'll make it a straight line, then Alt select this one, SY0, and that'll just make it, that'll just straighten it out. Oh, same with this top part over here, sorry, this side as well. U, unwrap, R90, select this one, SY0, select this one, SY0, scale it up till it matches the reference, and that should be fine. And finally the top, U, unwrap. Okay, so then let's go back to the shading workspace real quick. Don't need to see that view, so just let's look at this side. Go to the modifiers panel, add in a subdivision surface once more, and bump this up. And what we'll also do is go to object and shade smooth. Okay, so we have something that looks like that. Okay, so let's now fix up the material for this basket. So I'm just going to bring in all these PBR texture images. So let's start with this one, click and drag this one, ambient occlusion that I can see over there. So let's go ahead and mix this color. So color, mix RGB, mix this color with this one, and that alone won't be enough, so we need to change this from mix to multiply. And now we can control how much ambient occlusion we want in this. So let's keep it the default around that 0.5 is fine. Next up, let's go ahead and drag in this normal, and I want to create a new node. So Shift A vector normal map. Sorry, Shift A vector normal map. Connect this color to this color. Change this from color space from sRGB to non-color, and connect this normal to this normal. Okay, so the next thing we need to bring in is this one, which is the opacity, and finally this one, which is the roughness. So if I connect this roughness directly into this roughness node, so from this color to this roughness, it's looking way too shiny. So I think the meaning of roughness is different in both softwares. It could mean the other way around. So let's go to Shift A, color, invert, and plug that directly in there. And now the roughness seems okay. Okay, if you want to dial that If you want to have a little bit of control over that roughness even more, you can always bring in a Shift A vector, sorry, a converter color ramp, and control the roughness even more. So if you want to make it more smooth, then you can do that. If you make it more rough, then you dial this one back down a little. At this point, I'll just leave it as the default. Okay, so it's starting to look like a wicker basket now. So final thing that we need to do is we need to add in a bit of transparency to make it look more realistic. So this is where this opacity image will be useful. So let's go to Shift A, shader, transparent shader. So this shader means that it will make the object invisible. So we need to mix that shader, with this shader over here, so that if it's 100%, it will be transparent. Now, by default, it shows as black. That's because we're using the Eevee render engine. We're going to end up using the Cycles rendering engine. But now, just for display in Eevee, just for our viewport, if you want to see it transparent, just go to the Material tab, which is the same thing as this one, but shown in a more neater fashion. And then under, under the settings, change the blend mode from opaque to alpha hashed, I think. Yeah, and this one as well, maybe alpha hashed. I don't really know why I need to do that, but I just know that that's what you need to do. So now I can blend between 100% transparent to not transparent at all. Okay, and we need to control the part of the image that will be transparent, and that will be done using this image. So this will be our factor. Okay, oops, it looks like it's the other way around. The transparent shader needs to go at the top, and the principal shader needs to go at the bottom. So now if I go in, we can see that there should be a little bit of transparency coming through our image. Okay, so that completes our wicker basket. Just to keep things in scale, I'm just going to go to the scene properties, and then under units, we're going to work in metrics. If you work in feet and inches, go ahead and use the imperial system, but I work with meters and centimeters, so I'll be using metric. And 1 meter in Blender is equal to 1 square, like this 1 square over here. So it's 1 meter by 1 meter. So I assume the Easter eggs will be a lot less than that, so I'm just going to make it really, really small. And then these Easter eggs, I'll just select all 4 of them by shift selecting them all, and then scaling them down by hitting S. That's the shortcut. And then it's just a matter of placing those Easter eggs where you want in the basket. The final thing we need to do is we need to add in a ground and lights and a camera to finish off our scene. So to add the ground is easy. Let's move the 3D cursor right at the center over here. We're going to Shift S, cursor to world origin. So, or you can go Shift S and then move your mouse here, and then it's done. Then go Shift A, mesh plane, or same thing as add mesh plane, and then we'll just make it a little bit big like so, and then we'll create a new material for this one. We'll call it the ground. The ground material will be the plank material that we got from cc0textures.com. So same thing like we did with the wicker, drag in the color and put it right on the base color. The default should be okay, and then just bring in the other images the same way. So the ambient occlusion, let's mix that color, mix RGB, mix that with the original image, and use the multiply so that we can use this as a factor to determine how much ambient occlusion we want to use. Maybe we'll put this a little higher than usual so that we can make the crevices a little darker. Let's also drag in the displacement, not the displacement, we don't need that. We'll use a null map for that. And then go to Shift A, vector null map, connect the color to this color, change this to non-color data, go to normal to normal, that should add in the bump. Perfect. And finally, we'll go ahead and add in the roughness. So let's just move things out of the way by hitting B and then just clicking and dragging out. Connect this roughness color to this roughness. But I think it's done the other way around. So just go to color, invert, and that should be more realistic. Okay, and I think that's it. There's no transparency needed here, so we don't need to use anything else. What I'll do just to make the image more interesting is I'll just go ahead and duplicate this, or maybe I can duplicate this by hitting Shift D, or maybe I'll just go Alt D to create a clone of it. And then just rotate on the x-axis, let's say, RX90, but in the negative direction. Like so. And then let's just put it in line over here. So something like that. Finally, let's go ahead and bring in our camera. And to position it right in front, let's go to numpad 1 on your keyboard. So let's do this in the modeling view actually. Let's go to the numpad view right in front, so numpad 1. And then select the camera, which is already selected. And then go Control, Alt, numpad 0. That will automatically position the camera right in front. Cool. So with the camera settings, let's go ahead and click that camera tab over here. Viewport display, turn on limits. And we want to be able to position this camera, and we'll just maybe move it in by hitting GZZ twice. And let's just create a nice little composition for this one. And let's just see what that looks like in rendered mode. So right now it looks really dark and not realistic at all. So there's a few things we can do to fix that up. First of all, the renderer, we're not going to use Eevee. Eevee won't really give you photorealistic results. It can if you play around with the lighting and the settings. Maybe that's something that I can do in another video. But I just want to get some quick results, so I'm just going to use Cycles. Okay, so this is with Cycles. It's a more photorealistic render engine. But right now it's looking too dark, and that's because we don't have any lighting. So the lighting for this one, I want to use another plane. So Shift A plane, and then this time I'll go RY90. So rotate on the Y axis 90 degrees. And then let's just move it over here. And oops, sorry, over here, and move it up. Let me scale it up a little. Okay, and let's just go to the material settings. We could go to shading, but let's just do it right here in the modeling tab. Go to material settings, let's create a new material. Call this one light. And let's just change this principal BSDF to an emission shader. So if you look at it in the shading workspace, it's just simply an emission node. So let's go to modeling workspace, and let's tab out of edit mode, and we can see that we've created a nice little light coming, like almost like outdoor light that's coming onto the scene over here. We'll go ahead and add in some HDRI light to the scene as well. That'll just make the lighting look a lot more realistic. So go to the world properties and change this color to environment texture. Finally, open up a HDRI sky image. For this case, I went ahead and downloaded HDRI Sky 018. It's a cloudy sky, so we won't get any kind of like harsh shadows or anything from sunlight or anything like that. So it's also the lighting that I used in the backyard course. So we have something now that looks like this. Okay, so the lighting looks a lot more realistic now. Okay, just to add a little bit more visual interest, we can maybe bring some eggs out. So let's go Shift D and bring some eggs outside. Maybe make the scale of it a lot smaller by hitting S. And then just maybe making a lie on the ground. Alright, cool. So we just added in a bit of visual interest. Now, the final thing we can do just to make it look like a proper photography, we might zoom in a little bit more. Actually, no, that should be enough. Just to make it look like one of them still photography type of images, we may go ahead and use some depth of field in it as well. So let's go ahead and tick depth of field. And we need to control, right now everything's looking blurry. So we need to control where that depth of field will be by changing the distance parameter by over here. So just click and drag this in. Alternatively, you can just select an object by using this eyedropper tool, and maybe we'll make this sphere right in front to be the one in focus. So if I look at this in rendered mode, this one looks like it's in focus now, and the background should be blurry. In fact, I want to enhance that blurry effect even more, make the scene look a lot more miniature because Easter eggs are quite small, and maybe we'll make this one 1. Yeah, I think that looks even cool. Actually, I might make this one to be the focus image. So let's go ahead and select the camera, change this focus object to be this one instead. for this green, maybe I want to enhance it. I want this green to have a bit more saturation, maybe this pink to have more saturation as well. Let's just quickly go to the shading tab real quick. And for this green, I'll just go ahead and go into color, hue, saturation, and plug that in there and turn up the saturation maybe 1.2. Let's just compare, sorry, 1. Yeah, so 1.3 maybe. Same with this one. Color, hue, saturation, 1.4. Alright, so let's now give that a final render and see what that looks like. So to render it out, all we need to do is go to render, render image. Oh, there is seams showing over here, so I'm going to quickly stop that. And then I'm going to rotate it around until the seams aren't visible. Maybe somewhere around there. Oops, sorry, let's do that again. Over here. Maybe somewhere around there, and let's do another render. Alright, so the rendering is now done. So what I might do now is I might just do some light compositing to this image and call it done. The compositing, what I'm going to do is just enhance the colors a little bit and add in a vignette effect and a little bit of lens distortion. So back in Blender, let's go to the compositing workspace and tick use nodes. To see what we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and add in an output viewer node and connect this image to this one. And I want to be able to see the backdrop a little better as well. Now let's go to view and click fit. This node will be used for the final pass when we save it to an image, and this node will just be for our viewport display over here. So the final result will be pretty much the same thing. So I guess I can link these two together. So hit shift and right click and just draw something like that, and those two will link just like that. Now I want to add in a little bit of lens distortion. So the way to do that is go shift A or go to add, same thing. Shift A is a shortcut, and then go to distort lens distortion and just put that in there. Click fit and distort 0.02, dispersion 0.01, and that should make it look a little bit more realistic, like as if it's been taken from a photo. We want to also play around with the colors, so maybe a bit of RGB curves might increase the color a little bit. Make it look a little bit more bright, but overall a bit more dark as well. Something like that. Trying to go for that sort of S look. You can go to standard or film like. Anyways, I can't really tell the difference. We might also go ahead and add in a color balance. Now you can use this node to change the mood. This one should be a more happier kind of mood, so I'm just gonna go for slightly warmer colors, but for the shadows might keep it. Oh, sorry, that doesn't look good. Let's go warmer over here. Then go with blue over here. And just sort of play around with the color scheme until you get something that looks quite nice. So I might go with something that looks like that. Quite nice. And finally, we'll go ahead and add in a vignette. So for the vignette, go Shift A, distort lens distortion, change this to 1, and then Shift A, filter blur, change this from Gaussian to fast Gaussian, and then change this maybe to 250 by 250, connect this image to this image, go to color, mix, and put this one at the bottom over here, and then change this to multiply. Now we use the factor to determine how much vignette we want. So 0 means no vignette at all, and if I just drag it up, I'll just keep this one quite subtle. I think a vignette fits quite nicely to an image like this, where we have just one main focal point. And yeah, I think I like that one. If you want to remove the noise in this image, what you can do is you can also go Shift A, filter denoise, and if you click that and put it in there, it will remove all the noise automatically from your scene. Just need to wait a little bit because it takes some time. There's a bit of AI going on behind the scenes, but it's done it. So as you can see, all the noise is gone, like all that graininess is gone, and it looks very, very smooth. But for this renderer, I'm not going to use the denoise node. I kind of like that grainy look. It kind of makes it look DSLR-ish, which I kind of like. So I'll just leave it the way it is. And let's go ahead and save that. So just go save a copy and put it wherever you like on your hard disk. And that's about it. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please go ahead and like, share and subscribe. If you have any questions or feedback, please drop them in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.